Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Why are we debating over the closing of loopholes? The Coalition presided over the years of the digital transformation of workplaces, where the very nature of the work and employee and employer relations fundamentally changed, and they did nothing to uphold the rights of workers. They oversaw the erosion of minimum standards, the erosion of the right to bargain, the erosion of safety nets, the erosion of the value of enterprise agreements. Perhaps many opposite would chalk up that list as wins, but it is an appalling attack on the essence of what it means to be Australian. It is an attack on the fair go. It's an attack on workers who are subject to the deliberate suppression of their wages for a decade, on workers stuck in precarious casual work, on gig workers, on labour hire workers, on workers who have gone backwards under that previous government. And those workers are all glad now that they have an ally in this government, a government who understands what workers want and need, a government that has their back. The Closing Loophole Bill covers providing clear pathways for casuals to transition to permanent work, ensuring protections for gig economy workers, closing the labour hire loophole and criminalising wage theft. The over-casualisation and the normalisation of permanent casuals is making it harder for individuals and families to build and plan for their future. And let's not be lulled into thinking casual work is limited to supermarket checkout workers, corner delis or pulling beers on a Saturday night. University lecturers, aged care workers, bank tellers, miners, truck drivers, people working in the media, warehouse workers. Casual work exists across all sectors and affects the people we rely on to keep our economy and our society pumping. These casual workers are trying to support families and run households, pay rent, pay their bills and secure a mortgage. And the insecurity of casual work affects their capacity to do so. Employers, meanwhile, are enjoying the benefits of stable, reliable rosters by treating casuals as permanent workers without having to provide any job security in return. It is a loophole that needs to be closed. It's important to reiterate that no casual will be forced to lose their loading. No casual will be forced to become a permanent employee. This will be an employee choice. But for those who do not want that security and are being rostered as though they were permanent, security is now within sight. It is surely difficult to oppose this new pathway to conversion, a measure simply designed to allow the truth of a situation to shine through and to take effect. The same commitment to truth underpins the legislation addressing the dearth of protections currently in place for workers in the gig economy. Workers who work through digital labour platforms in areas such as food delivery, rideshare and the care economy. Currently, if you're classified as an employee, you have a whole raft of rights and entitlements, minimum rates of pay, sick leave and annual leave. If, like the vast majority of gig economy workers, you are not classified as an employee, those rights, as Minister Burke has said, fall off a cliff. This bill allows for the flexibility that many workers enjoy as a feature of this technology, without leaving them completely exposed and without protection. My colleague, the member for Burt, referred in his speech to the tragic death of food delivery driver Barak Dogan, whose uncle I actually met here at the House just a few months ago. Uber Eats claimed food delivery rider Barak Dogan wasn't working for them when he went under a truck in April 2020, despite his phone receiving job requests from Uber Eats at the exact time of his death and afterwards as he lay dead on the road. Under this bill, workers like Barak will no longer fall through the cracks. Under this bill, workers will also receive the same pay for the same job. The labour hire loophole is a backdoor way for unscrupulous employers to deny workers the agreed paying conditions enjoyed by colleagues doing the exact same job. And let's pause there for a moment to reflect on the temerity of this behaviour. That an employer sits at the bargaining table with their workers and together in good faith they negotiate a set of wages and conditions that are agreeable to all parties. So why then, when labour hire workers are brought in to cover seasonal or surge periods, should they be paid less than the already agreed to minimum wage for that job. I tell you, they shouldn't. It's a loophole, and we're closing it. It should not be legal to deliberately undercut agreements, and it should certainly not be legal to deliberately underpay workers. It is rightly against the law to steal from the cash register, and soon it will be against the law to steal wages from workers. That is why we are criminalising wage theft. And much like the proliferation of casualisation, wage theft is not limited to low-skill or entry-level jobs. University tutors have found themselves in this situation. Many are aware of the 7-Eleven wage theft case. The business model built on the systemic theft of wages, doctored timesheets, threats of deportation, workers taking home sometimes half of their hourly rate. It was disgusting and it was rightly exposed, and the company is now paying a hefty price through civil suits. Recently, a survey of young members was conducted by a union in Western Australia. This survey covered a litany of workplace issues including bullying, discrimination, harassment and burnout, roster compliance, payment for mandatory training and, saliently, wage theft. This wasn't the shopkeepers' union, the construction union or the hospitality union. It was the Australian Medical Association. And in Victoria, in August, the Federal Court found in favour of young Melbourne Dr Gabby Bolton in a systemic wage theft class action. There are further 9 class actions on foot across the country concerning 15 health services. Deputy Speaker, wage thieving employers do not discriminate, from service stations to surgeries. Wage theft is insidious wherever and whenever it occurs. We are criminalising wage theft. Theft is theft. I have read and heard a few of the speeches of those opposite on this bill. Please correct me if I slip and refer to the member for Westacott, but the Coalition have been reading a little too closely from the Business Council's song sheet on this one. Members opposite will need to explain to their constituents why they won't act on wage theft, won't close loopholes, won't protect gig workers and won't give casuals a pathway to security. Union delegates speak to these workers every day. One of the differences between our side and those opposite is that we have the benefit of hearing from unions and their members on a regular basis. We hear their stories. We know what they face in their workplaces every day of the week because they tell us. I acknowledge the member for Paterson, who has been a strong advocate for her community on this bill. I also acknowledge the member for Kennedy, who is a proud union member, and I expect he will support the bill because he understands these issues very well and is passionate about them. I urge members opposite to engage with unions and their members, to invite them into your offices and hear firsthand their stories and understand better the need of Australian workers. The limited gene pool of the IPA and the Business Council cannot provide you that perspective. It is important for a party to be able to bring a range of views and experiences to each and every piece of legislation in this place. The members for New England and Longman, in their contribution on this bill, dragged out that old lazy line that ALP members don't know anything about running a business. Now, of course, we do have our fair share of lawyers and academics and doctors, and maybe they also run businesses. But I know I have a business, and the member for Hunter has a business, and the members for Tangi and Bennelong and Parramatta have had businesses, and in other places my friends Senator Sterle and Minister Farrell have had businesses. And I'm sure I'm just scratching the surface. So I think that the members for New England and Longman might want to drag themselves out of whichever century they're living in and realise that the modern Labor caucus is not just gender diverse and culturally diverse, we're also diverse in backgrounds and experiences. We know how to run business, and we know when a business is being run in a way that is unfair to workers. The member for Moncrear, for Little Oddly, wants to oppose the bill on the basis of choice and flexibility. She says choice and flexibility are the bedrock of the Liberal Party. I always smile in a tight-lipped sort of way when I hear the Liberal Party talk about choice. They support choice, not for everyone though, just for those who can pay for it. The Liberal mantra of choice is built upon a sedimentary bedrock of people who don't have choice, who can't choose, who can't afford to choose. It's an affront to hear choice raised as an attack on a bill designed to provide those people, ordinary workers, with fair and just pay and conditions so they don't have to choose the unfair and only option available to them. Nothing in this bill will get in the way of wealthy people expressing choice. Nothing in this bill will get in the way of businesses choosing to arrange their affairs as they wish, unless what they are choosing is to exploit workers. The use of labour hire companies is a case in point. This bill doesn't prevent any business from using a labour hire company if they wish to. The ethical and well-run businesses will continue to do exactly that without blinking. If, however, what is really happening is that the business is choosing to do this merely in order to avoid its obligations to workers and pay less than the agreed rates, then that poor conduct is captured. The member for Page, perhaps off in another faraway land of Oz, said that we don't need this legislation because, as far as he can tell, people look after their staff. Quite a broad and risky statement, I thought. Here in the real world, some people don't look after their staff, and this legislation will help to deal with that. Not content with saying that, the member for Page went further out on a limb and stated that we have an awards system and minimum rates of pay so people aren't abused or exploited. I mean, really? I'm glad, of course, that the member for Page appreciates the fruits of the labour of the great Australian trade union movement, but the member must have missed the minister's speech where he reminded us that for those workers this bill seeks to assist, minimum standards in awards and agreements are often no more than words on a page. In vivid contrast, my friend the member for Werriwa referred saliently to Article 23 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and it's worth repeating. Everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work. Everyone who works has the right to just and favourable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family an existence worthy of human dignity, and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. This bill is another firm and necessary step towards that lofty, reasonable and worthwhile goal. Members opposite should be supporting this legislation. They aren't, but they should. They know that the ills that this legislation is aimed at are just rorts. As Minister Burke stated on Monday, the opposition had every opportunity to introduce legislation in relation to these matters over many years and did nothing. I hope that every worker in Hasluck and every worker across Australia takes a good, hard look at those members opposite who vote no to this legislation. I still hope that some may cross the floor and vote in the interests of Australian workers. Liberal and National members will be voting no to properly defining casual employees because they don't care that some workers are disadvantaged by the fiction that employment is casual. The Liberal and National members will vote no to drawing a clearer line between employees and independent contractors because they don't care if some workers lose out on conditions and benefits in unfair circumstances. The Liberal and National members will vote no to the principle of same work, same pay, because they don't have sufficient respect for wage earners. The Liberal and National members will vote no to the criminalisation of wage theft. I don't know how they can do that, but there you go. And the Liberal and National members will vote no to minimum standards for gig workers and transport workers because they haven't got the slightest idea what minimum standards are. The No Coalition will vote no to these fair and necessary changes to the law to close the loopholes that currently allow some workers to be left behind. But the work done by those workers is no less important than anyone else's, and the Albanese government has pledged that we will leave no one behind. This government is a government of conviction, and this bill is a necessary step in fulfilling that commitment. I commend the Minister for his ongoing work to ensure that all workers fairly share in the fruits of their shared labour, and I support the bill.